And recently I read the comic book Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin, a very famous comic book that was released in the recent years and tells a very dark and dystopic story of these characters. I thought it was awesome. Actually, I was curious because they are going to make a video game based on it and also a live-action movie about it. And the comic book itself is very cinematic. It has 5 issues, I think, and these 5 issues combined really look like a feature movie. And as any kid, I was a huge fan of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in movies, or in cartoons, in video games as well. It was a huge part of my childhood, which I remember very fondly with nostalgia, especially because of the second movie, The Secret of the Ooze. But I guess I lost my love for these characters with time, just like it happened with the Harry Potter series, which I grew up along with these characters during the movies. I was a child in the first movie, a teenager in the middle movies, then as an adult in the last movie, I didn't care anymore. And that kinda happened with the Turtles as well, but I never really lost my interest in their mythology. And the IP, or the franchise, whatever you wanna call it, is still going very strong, especially with the last animation as a feature film, Mutant Mayhem. So I believe these are characters that still have a great appeal with the audience. But why the hell am I talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in this channel that is about Batman? Because in 2019, a very awesome animation was released with Batman vs. the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. A crossover that was very unexpected to me, but I didn't know that there was a long history between these two franchises in comic books. And I remember watching it with no expectations, just trying to have some fun, and I got really surprised by the quality of this animation and how awesome it was. It is one of these animations that I watch from time to time, and every single time I have fun equally. It's charming, very well done, very funny, and actually pretty violent. Even though it has a tone of animation for children, there is some blood and kills in some scenes, which plays with the idea that even though the Turtles is an IP for children, basically, their background of stories is pretty dark, actually. Anyway, this animation from 2019 is based on a comic book by the writer James Tynion IV and illustrated by Freddie Williams II. And the story takes the Ninja Turtles to Gotham City because they are after their main classic villain, the Shredder, to stop his plans of stealing a machine in the Wayne Enterprises, a machine that produces artificial clouds and rain. The Shredder will use the ooze, the chemical substance that transformed the Ninja Turtles and all their villains into creatures, to make it rain all over Gotham City so that the chemicals transform every single person in the city into monsters as well. What the Turtles don't know is that the Shredder created an alliance with one of Batman's greatest foes, Ra's al Ghul. And the idea of make the ooze rain over Gotham is actually from Ra's. The Shredder will use the Foot Clan, his gang, to steal the machine and actually give it to Ra's al Ghul in exchange for a Lazarus Pit, so that the Shredder can also gain immortality just like the villain. And this causes the Turtles to clash with Batman and his Bat family during this whole adventure, which initially causes a little bit of conflict with the Turtles fighting the hero, but then he will realize that they are actually heroes that are on his side to protect Gotham City. And let me be straight with you, given the due context of this animation, I think this film is perfection. All elements of both mythologies, both the Batman and the Turtles, are used perfectly. The mix of villains with Ra's al Ghul and the Shredder working together is just a genius idea, because both of these villains are leaders from a huge gang of ninjas, Shredder with the Foot Clan and Ra's al Ghul with the League of Shadows, or League of Assassins, depending on the adaptation. Also, in the side of the heroes, we have two families bonding over the movie. The ninjas, they are all brothers, of course, and the Bat family, that in here we have Barbara Gordon as the Batgirl and the son of Bruce Wayne, Damian Wayne, which in this animation he is a little brat, but not so much like other adaptations, so this is cool as well. Of course, and we cannot forget about Alfred, that also plays a little role here in this formation, because even though the two teams get together to stop their villains, there is a very cool separation between the characters in terms of partnership, a dual partnership. For example, Batman becomes more friendly with Leonardo during the film, including training him in some of his own skills. Then Robin Damian becomes more friendly with Raphael, because both of them are impulsive teenagers. Batgirl becomes more friendly with Donatello, because they are the brains of the group. They're both great with computers and investigating things. And Michelangelo becomes more friendly with Alfred, believe it or not, because the British ways of the butler clash completely with the skater, teenager, and childish nature of Michelangelo, which is very funny to see on screen. By the way, this movie is very funny, and I believe all the characters are very charismatic. Most of the jokes land, and believe it or not, even Batman throws some of his own jokes around. So we do have the strict, tough Batman that is usual in many adaptations, but here he gets a little loose during the story, especially because of the fun and childish nature of the Turtles. Everything is done very gradually, and even though we don't have some of the Turtles' mythology characters like April O'Neil or Casey Jones, even Splinter is nowhere to be seen during the story. But they are not missed because we have all the characters that are necessary here. And I think there would be too many characters to deal with those side characters of the Turtles as well. And I say this because there is a whole section of the movie that takes place in Arkham Asylum with most Batman Rogues Gallery showing up. And this is my favorite section of the movie because we're gonna have all those characters being affected by the ooze and transforming themselves into beasts or animals, forcing Batman and the Turtles to join forces and fight them. We have Bane that transforms into a huge tiger. Mr. Freeze becomes a polar bear, which is kinda funny but very fitting. The Scarecrow becomes a crow, which is also very fitting. Poison Ivy becomes this huge carnivorous flower, but her appearance is kinda disappointing because they don't do much with her. We also have Two-Face becoming this very bizarre creature with two heads, a cat and a dog, something like that. And then we have Harley Quinn becoming a hyena, and the Joker becoming a huge snake, which is very cool. So these scenes with Batman and the Turtles fighting these creatures are simply a blast. The two best fights are probably Mr. Freeze versus Raphael, Michelangelo, and Robin, and the Scarecrow versus Leonardo, because he uses his fear gas against the turtle, and Leonardo has this nightmarish vision of his brother's dead, which is very cool and dark. And of course, during this whole fight, Batman himself is transformed into a creature by the ooze. And obviously, he turns into a huge man-bat, almost like his own villain, the Man-Bat. Speaking about fights, I think this movie has probably the best fight scenes to be put on animation that I've ever seen. The two highlights are Batman versus the Shredder, which I think he has the best choreography I've ever seen Batman fighting in any animation. The fact that the Shredder and Batman have these metal fans on their arms, and they use them a lot during the fight, is just an example of how the creators know exactly how to use elements of both franchises and match them in a solid story. And like I mentioned before, that this animation is very violent. These fight scenes are also very brutal for a children's cartoon. We have blood, broken bones. We actually have a scene that has an arm hanging after being broken by one of the villains, which is very brutal and awesome. Without mentioning some death scenes with beheadings and stars of ninjas being shot at people's heads, with blood and everything, so the animation doesn't hold back in this area. I think it's done a little tastefully, but still is very violent. And this is what makes this animation so special, because all of this is mixed with a very colorful and pretty well designed world in this movie. For example, Batman's design for me is one of my favorites in any animation. It looks a little like the Danny O'Neill version of the character in the comics, which is also one of my favorite looks for the character, with this blue cowl and cape. Also, the design of the villains, their creature versions, and all the other things in the animation is pretty well appropriate mixing these both franchises in perfect harmony. What else can I say about this animation? It has many Easter eggs about both mythologies from the ninjas and Batman. We have references with name drops of other characters in the Batman mythos, and also some visual links to some images in the Turtles movies, which is just an icing on the cake that makes the whole thing even more enjoyable. Plus, without giving too many spoilers for those who didn't watch, we have an post-credit scene that shows one of the villains becoming a mixture of two villains of both mythologies. And I gotta say, it's just awesome. It's also a kind of cliffhanger for a second story in animation that we never had, but I would love that they do it. So please, Warner Bros., give us the sequel to this movie with more characters from the Turtles, especially in the story. And speaking about credits, the credits of the animation shows many comics of the past with the crossovers between these two characters during all the years, and they really have a long history of clashing in the comics, so it's very cool that this animation exists today. Not only that, but of course many people don't remember that there was an actual reference in one of the first Batman movies to the Ninja Turtles that we cannot end this video without mentioning. So what do you think, guys? Have you ever watched Batman vs. the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Comment below, and please, if you haven't watched, go after because it's really worth your time. As usual, thank you so much if you are liking the content of this channel. Please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos of Batman and DC news here in the BATGUS. This is it for now. See you in the next Bat video, and bye-bye.